Awesome. So I first want to start off with how me and you know each other, which is we don't, right? Like I messaged you on Instagram. It's like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And you're like, oh, I see some flaws with it. And it's like, cool. That's kind of what I was looking for. And then I started looking at your page. I was like, oh, she's doing some like mental stuff. I don't see a lot of coaches doing that. I've worked with, in the past 2 weeks, I worked with about 30 coaches, and none of them are talking about psychology. None of them are talking about sports performance. Most of them are talking about volleyball performance by doing more stuff. So whenever I reached out to you, I was like, oh, this will be a really cool conversation. So since I don't know you that well and whatnot, can you give us like a 30 to 60 second, like who you are and what you do outside of volleyball coaching or including volleyball coaching?
Yeah, so I'm Kristen Woodman. I'm a mental performance coach. I've been coaching volleyball for 16 years. I've been playing it for over 20. I've been in the mental space probably about 2 years. Prior to that, I was really linked to fitness and functional fitness and working with adults and athletes. But I just found myself asking, why are some? I coach in North Dallas, North Texas region, which is one of the most competitive volleyball regions, and I feel like one of the most competitive areas for sports in the country. So I found myself asking over the last 2, 3 years of seeing these high performer athletes not be able to perform when it matters most. And I found myself getting frustrated at the athlete because I'm like, you're so capable, but why? Why are you not doing this? Why are we self sabotaging? Or to me at the time, not really knowing, why are we playing so selfishly? And so as I've kind of gotten into this space, I've realized that I was asking the wrong questions. And so yeah, have really dug into it and I've built my business around it and started doing one-on-one coaching. And naturally, I'm a natural teacher. I've got a biology and secondary education degree, and I feel that I have been called to educate. And so naturally, the more that I learn about the mental game, the more that I integrate it into my coaching. And by far, I've seen by far that I'm getting the most out of my athletes in the 16 years that I've been in this industry.
That's awesome. So are you from Texas?
I am not. I grew up in South Tulsa, Oklahoma. Went
Okay.
to college in Wichita, Kansas. Taught in back in Oklahoma, and I relocated in Dallas in summer of 2021.
Okay, cool. My wife's from Arlington area, so
Okay.
close to
Yeah,
that.
we don't live far from there. We're on the Fort Worth side of Dallas.
Okay, cool. Fort Worth is a cool city. She
Yeah.
lived there for a little bit while we were doing distance when we first started dating. So, on the mental side of working with athletes, is it a common thing to see performance in a certain type of person? You have a type A athlete, type A parents, they're coming to you and they're like, more is better, go, 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 go. Plus, they're also in track during the club season for volleyball. And then they're doing public school volleyball during the fall semester, right? So then it's like, oh, we need to do more stuff. And why not throw in piano lessons in there too? So, like, overstimulated, everyone's type A. Is there a classic parameter that you can put those people in? Like, that they're overcompensating in these areas, like they're just doing too much, or mentally they all kind of have like this stereotypical thing that they do?
Yeah, so I would say that 100% of my athletes in my program are perfectionists. Not all of them are perfectionists to a T when it comes to their academics, but the majority of them are. They are involved in a lot. I would say that with these athletes, you've got parents that are also type A that were also high performers in some form or fashion. Maybe not all of them in sports, but so they understand what it takes to be successful. And so it does appear that more is, or parents just, I think in my area, it's FOMO. I think that you see a lot of high level athletes and parents are fear of missing out. So they just say yes to everything. Because on top of what you described, they're also doing lessons on top of that. So there's no work rest balance mentally or physically. And so rest to them causes angst. So what I see a lot of, not, I would say probably about 50-50 with my athletes, is they're operating from a place of scarcity. They're operating from a place of angst. Rest makes them anxious because they feel that they're falling behind. I do see that my athletes fit like mid 15s year going into their sophomore year, 16s year of club, this angst kind of subsides, but it is so high in 13s and 14s. Like 14s is an all-time high of anxiety when it comes to performance because they they don't have a grasp of reality of that work balance relationship because they're not in a high level off-season program unless they're paying for it. And
Yeah.
even then, most of the time, it's 2 to 3 days a week. It's not 5 days a week like they are with school. So I do notice there's kind of a shift once athletes hit high school of just, and maybe even parents of just reality.
How much do you think that, I'm assuming most of these athletes are female?
Oh yeah, I only work with female
Okay.
athletes.
How much of this do you think stems from the crazy hormonal changes from 12 to 14 and like
I think it,
refinding themselves, like new
yeah,
hormones, new stuff, new feelings, new emotions, things are more exciting or more depressing. Like your range of stuff is more like dynamic once you go through puberty. Do you think that has some impact on like why you're seeing that? Or do you think it's just solely like now they're in high school and they've had enough time under tension of playing volleyball? Like they've had 2 years now.
I think that the exposure to multi age groups helps them
Okay.
for sure. And I think that with in my area specifically, and I think general where sports is going, competitive sports is going, especially volleyball. It's the word country club sport is now being thrown around because yeah, like the more that you can afford to pay for lessons, the better that you are. And I think that what my experience is that these athletes are specializing way too young, so it's automatically tying identity. And so when in my area, my club is very good at the young ages. We dominate in the young ages. And so they get an inflated sense of, oh my gosh, I'm so good. And I'm like, well, you're good because you're very athletic at 9 years old, or 10, or 11, 12, 13. But when puberty hits and the game levels out because these athletes are growing and they're growing into their feet and they're prioritizing training, they're not just relying on talent, they start to get pushed a little bit more. And so therefore it it puts pressure on their identity, where their identity lies. And I mean, I see 10-year-olds in the gym twice a week with practice and do lessons with as many people as are available for them. And I'm like, where's the free play? Because we learn a lot in free play.
Hmm.
But so the question is when they're pressured or they lose or somebody comes along and is better than them, I'm not enough, right? Or it's challenging their belief system of, well, why is so and so better than me? I do all of this work. Why am I not getting these results? And so that's a huge conversation I have with a lot of female athletes is understanding that question of, well, I do all of this. Why is it not translating? Well, it's because we're operating from a place of angst, right? We're still trying to be perfect. We're still trying to control every aspect of our play when there's five other people on the court. And this game is one of the most random games. So you really can't replicate any rally. It's always adapting.
Yeah.
So, which this mindset, this fixed mindset or perfectionism doesn't allow them to be random because everything's been structured for them, which
As
I
you
think
were
is why a
saying
lot of
that,
athletes struggle.
yeah. As you were saying that, it reminded me of my wife. She ran 400, 800 through like before junior high, through in club, all the way through college, and still competes today. And her parents always told her, they were like, "You're really fast right now as a 11, a 10, 11, a 12-year-old, but once puberty happens, like you're not going to be as fast. Like you're not going to be faster than the boys."
Right.
And so they were always like so grounded. And everyone else is telling them like, "Oh, she's gonna make it to the Olympics because she's so fast." Because like what you're saying, like, yeah, you're 9 years old and you're doing really well. But then that started happening, right? She turns 14. She's starting to get out competed by boys, and she's like, she's not losing her identity because her parents are like, they never made a big deal out of it. Like, if you love running, run.
Yeah.
you're also going to go through puberty and things are going to change. And she's like, okay. So she's just aware of it. Like there's a
Right.
mental, like a psychological state of, yeah, things are going to change later on. And
Yeah.
so, and it's cool because to see her today, most people, whenever you want a goal, right? Like this season, I want to become a better volleyball player. And it's like, well, what about in 5 years? Are you thinking that far ahead? And for her, every time I ask her and talk to other people about goal setting, for her, it's, I love it so much. I don't care what happens. Like if I don't break 60 in the 400 as a 36-year-old woman with a kid that's 2 years old that I've been breastfeeding for 2 years, if I don't make that, I'm okay. Because I'm going to try again next year too.
Yeah.
And for so many people, it's like, if I don't do that, I feel like I should stop doing this completely.
Right.
And whenever I train people, I don't care if they're 13 or they're 60. My thought process is, how can I get this person to the Olympics in 20 years? People are like, well, that's not realistic. I'm like, I don't care if it's realistic. I saw a 97-year-old woman break the pole vaulting world record at the Masters World Championship that my wife was running at live in person. I was about 30 feet away from her, and she jumped 3.5 feet at 97.
That's
Like, that's
crazy.
wild. So, yes, a 60-year-old might not make it to the Olympics, but my brain goes to, I'm training you to the best of my abilities to get you as good as you can possibly get, whatever that means.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like all the people that do the sport and then get so worked up on the sport, they almost fall out of love with play, like you just said.
Yeah.
So then they don't make it into college, or they're so burned out by high school, they don't make it into their sport in college, or they stop after college. And then they just have this athlete mindset, but then they're not an athlete anymore. It seems like such a hard thing to deal with, especially if the parents are pushing it on you. You don't want to upset your parents because they're paying a lot of
Right.
money for you to be in this thing. So there's a little bit of like angst there. There's a performance angst. That actually leads me to a question. And I'll give you the example that I gave, and then you can riff off of that however you want to. A coach is like, I don't know why my athletes, she was coaching 14 nationals. She's like, I don't know why they perform amazing. The past 2 years, they've been performing amazing in practice. We go to competition and they break down. And I was like, it's the environment. And she's like, well, no, they're playing volleyball on a court. I'm like, I understand that. In practice, things feel safe. They're comfortable. Whenever you go to a competition or a match, and it can be at your home place, they're still going to break down because now there's competition involved. I was like, my example that I gave to her is like, have you ever thought about doing like fire breathing or what's it called? Basically like box breathing. So you're
Yeah.
increasing cortisol levels to simulate, hey, I'm about to do this competitive thing, even if it's in practice. Because if you have a disconnect between competition and practice, you're never going to connect the dots. You're always going to
Correct.
fall apart. So what do you think about that?
So I think that that's the complex issue that I think a lot of coaches struggle with is one, like I think there has to be more conversation around what the purpose of this is. Like you have to challenge the athlete to be able to simulate a competitive mindset for themselves. And how do you do that? Right? I think a lot of coaches want to add pressure to certain drills or certain consequences. You need to get so many, passes and so many minutes or so many opportunities. But are you adding the conversation of why we do this? Right? Because as soon as you add pressure, as soon as you add a limit or a time limit or so many opportunities, you see a totally different team. Why? Because now they're immediately focused on the outcome. So if I were to have a conversation, you need to get 40 good passes in 3 minutes, or you get 10 opportunities to complete this cooperative drill. Why? So I let them kind of figure it out, give them a couple opportunities, increase the pressure. They have consequences, right? Because I want to increase pressure. But then I ask, why does it look differently? Because I would give them an opportunity to do it without pressure and it looks great. And then it instantly looks different. Or when you get to, 10 in a row, around 8, they start to get tight. Why? Because they start thinking, oh my God, I don't want to mess up because we're so close to finishing. Right? So then it's bringing them back in to be able to have a conversation of what's changing. Why is it changing? Where is your mind going at 8? Well, I'm more worried about messing up. Okay, so then you hit the ball softer. Now the ball's dropping short when our defense is lined up because we've been hitting deep. So now we're changing,
Real
right?
quick, do they do they understand that?
Yes.
Okay, because
Well,
I
my
noticed
kids do.
like some athletes, whenever you say something high level to them, like I did a coaching presentation a couple weeks ago, and I presented a complex question, and I'm like, how many coaches know what I'm talking about? And everyone's like, I know two words in that sentence. I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, that's how some of the kids feel. They might be new
Right.
to this and they might not know. So I was curious whenever you're saying that, I can see some people not understanding that unless you teach them. So do you ever find any issues with like the communication sometimes is over their head and they like, how do you feel? And they're like, I don't know how I feel. Like whenever you train someone, like how does your how does your glutes feel whenever you're doing squats? I don't know. Feel, fine, I guess. Like they don't really know what they're supposed to be looking for. So
Yeah,
sorry to cut you off.
it's
Curious.
okay. I think the big thing here is that the way that I coach my athletes is like the way that I mean it takes a learning curve obviously of what my verbiage is. But for instance, like I look at my hitter this past weekend we played in Boston. We were in the finals and I was like, what happened? The ball went into the net. What happened? I dropped my elbow. Okay, cool. So 2.5 months ago when we started, I would ask that same question and she goes, I don't know. Okay, cool. Your elbow's dropping, right? So it's about, I think we as coaches get so used to just telling and never checking for comprehension. Because why I also do this, the way that I do it, is so that they know they are equipped to know how to make the adjustment without me telling them. The goal, right? I'm a coach 15s, so there's less hand holding than there was 14s. I've coached 12s the last 5 years. There's a lot of hand holding of like, it's fine, right? That's just part of the process. Next ball, move on, right? Or that's okay. It's a playable ball, right? So there's a lot of feedback at the younger ages. But now it's I just look at them like, what happened? I dropped my elbow. Cool, done. Fix it.
Do they need that mental map of something happened and they can't, or I guess do they ever deal with this? Something happened, they hit the net. They can't connect that something happened until you say what happened. Then they go, oh, that's what happened. Is there ever a disconnect there? Or is
Maybe
that younger
sometimes
kid?
in the
Like
yeah,
on
maybe
the,
some.
sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. So maybe sometimes in the beginning, like I've got two girls. So I looped with my team. I was the assistant with 8 of these girls last year. My new girls, my 3 new girls that I added, it's taking them a little bit longer, but it's because it's just the learning curve. So it's more about like it's more just about them me asking them to think, right? Because they're used to just saying, "Hey, you dropped your elbow, fix it." No, "Hey, what happened? What did you feel?" Right? We're working a lot on like being able to get your elbow high instead of swinging out with some of my hitters. And I'm like, "What do you feel? You did it right." Instantly ask, "What did you feel differently?" "Oh my God, I felt so much more power," or "I felt much more on the top of the ball." Whatever, right? Because my job is to help them connect that dots. But what I see the issue with and where I feel like coaches can do better with the mental part of the game is showing how these athletes are actually really equipped. I don't want them to be reliant on me of having to give feedback every single touch. Because why? Then they're not independent players and they're not independent thinkers. Because true confidence, stable confidence is built in proof. So my job is to say, what did you feel? Elbow, cool. You know exactly what to do. So next time you just do it,
Yeah.
right? They don't need to look over at the sidelines and be like, why? Because now they're freaked out or they've lost confidence or they're hitting scared or whatever. And same with passing. Like, hey, why did the ball not go where you wanted it to go? I don't know. Well, you didn't keep that back shoulder tight. Next time, what do you think happened? My back shoulder wasn't tight. Done. Right. Do it right next time. So,
You slightly brushed over this a little bit, and I think a lot of coaches could learn from this one little factor. A coach, or sorry, an athlete does something, they hit the ball wrong. Something there's an outcome. Coach says, "What's going on? I don't know. It's this." So you and them could say the same thing. Then the next part that you do that's awesome, and that other coaches it seems like they don't do is we're getting to a process to where they can now identify, oh, whenever I did this, my elbow was like tucked down too low. The other coach just goes back to, because of like what you said, because like your elbow's down, so hit it so they don't have to think for themselves. It seems almost the same, right? Like it's so like it's the same thing. One person saying one thing, the other person saying the other thing. Like you and the other coach, if you're a parent just looking at you and you know nothing about coaching, you're like, they're saying the same thing. It's like, but they're not really saying the same thing. It seems the same because it's the same movement pattern, but one coach is telling the athlete what to do by asking. Like, I'm asking you, but I'm telling you. The
Correct.
you, the mental processing of this is like, I'm asking you because I want you to think about this. And it's like, why does those two little parallels seem so simple, but it's like one grows an athlete exponentially long term, and one has reliance on a person, the coach.
Correct. Correct. And so the thing is like what I see, I did it last night in practice. What do you think happened? And I also get to check for comprehension. It also allows me to know how much more coaching some of my athletes need in certain skill sets, and where some I can just kind of let them be because I know that they're equipped.
How many
So in
kids
the
do you
moment,
coach generally?
I
Like
have
team?
11 on my team.
Okay.
So club
Pretty
teams are
standard.
usually max 12. Yeah, 10 to 12. Now I give lessons to over probably 60 athletes. So,
Is
but
that
it's
one
the
on
same.
one?
Sometimes one on one, groups of anywhere between 4 to 8.
Okay.
Just kind of depends. It's less and less now because I'm much more busy, but same concept, right? My evaluation for an 11-year-old is the same evaluation as an 18-year-old or a college athlete. It's the same evaluation. And it's me teaching them that I'm going to equip you, but I'm also going to ask you to think. Because again, you leaving part of working with me, whether it's in a lesson capacity and a mental coaching capacity, is for you to be able to be confident because we've all had bad coaches. We've all had coaches that are very outcome driven that just say, hey, pass the ball better. Think more positive. Just be confident. And you're like, well, duh, no shit. Like, come on, I get it, duh. But how does that equip them?
And
It
what does it
doesn't.
really mean?
They don't know. So they're just like, oh, think positive, think positive, think positive. And all in the meanwhile, you're just blowing up this balloon of anxiety of like doubt, questioning, because there's no direct direction. But what it also doesn't do is teach them that they already know what to do. And that whether it's a lower beginner level athlete or a high performer athlete that's top four power four player, it's all the same, right? It's all the same foundation of skills, but we have the power of as coaches to be able to equip them with handling pressure by simply pausing and explaining why. I think this is a big difference of generation between when we grew up and how kids are. Kids nowadays want to know why.
Yeah.
They want to know why. And parents expect you to tell the kids why, where before it'd be like, I would never think of like asking my coach why we do this. I just do it, right? We just do it because we're told to.
You said you have a degree in biology with a second
And
emphasis
secondary
in.
ed.
Okay. Did you take any? So there's no formal volleyball certificate to become a coach. Like anyone can be a coach, which is a problem, I think.
Agreed.
It's a weird. So I have a CSCS certification. It sounds cool, but as I'm going through the book and learning all the stuff, spending 3 months, like I have a degree in biology, psychology, exercise, sports science. Taking the CSCS certification in the tech and like reading through the textbook, I know a lot of the stuff. There's not going to be a point to where I need to explain to my athlete that a glial cell or a nervous cell has a negative 70 millivolt a glial cell has a negative 70 millivolt gradient on the external cell. That doesn't relate to, like, there's no purpose of that, right? So after I get the certification, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But a lot of the stuff that I'm learning in there is like, there's 10% of good information in there or refreshing of the information. The other 90% is just stuff to not get sued.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting safe. Don't squat below 90 degrees, right? Or parallel. I'm like, all my athletes, even athletes that have fully decompressed spines and hernias at different grades and levels. Like I have one client who has 9 herniated discs and 3 of them are fully protruded. Her chiropractor, doctor, etc. said, you'll never be able to squat again. You'll be able to twist your spine again. You'll never do this stuff. It took her 30 minutes to warm up to get off of a plane because she couldn't stand up. Now she's moving around. Like if she bent over to brush her teeth, her back would blow. Like she couldn't play with her kids for 3 weeks. Now she's doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, because we're training the body to the level of, we're getting you to a full deep squat. You're going ass to grass. There's nothing wrong with it if you know how to control it. So with all that said, do you see anything with either the education you received, certifications you've gone through, texts you've read, whatever, where there's like theory of volleyball, theory of mental training, theory of those things to real world execution? Do you see like any point that those do come together, or any points that those don't come together? Like for me, it was like the squats. Like, why would I not have someone do deep squats? Oh, because it puts pressure on your knee. And if I do a bicep curl, I'm putting pressure on my bicep. Should I not do that?
Right.
It's like, it's silly.
Yeah, I mean, I have CFSA level 1 and 2, and so, I mean, they are very forward about functional training, and it's like, why would we limit something that we would do on a daily basis? Why would we not train in the way that our body moves? But as far as answering your question, what I loved about my course when I took my course in mental game coaching professional, and I was in a class where I felt very, very inferior, of like all these psychology degrees, they're school counselors. One was like a high level executive life coach. And I'm like, okay, cool. You guys are sounding really clinical. And, when we're talking and sharing and doing this collaborative work, my professor's like, these athletes don't care about that. Like where I feel that my education degree, because I loved teaching. I just don't like the system, right? I would teach biology if it wasn't a crappy school system. I loved it. But what I feel like I was gifted with the lens of education is, how do I learn it and how do I teach it to where they understand it? They don't need to know that I know all of these biological processes, or they just need to know how it pertains to them. And so the way I actually wrote this down on my notes, I'm not clinical. I don't act clinical. I was actually collaborating with a guy that is his community of like how we can work together. And he asked me my background, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you I have this fancy sports psychology degree. I'm not going to tell you that I have any of that. But what I can tell you is I have a certification that allowed me to take the last 16 years of working in this sport with students, with athletes for longer than 16 years, because I was volunteering as a trainer, or not a trainer, but I was volunteering as like a trainer's assistant long before I was actually even certified, because I wanted to be involved. I wanted to help. And I wanted to learn.
I want anyone that watches this to hear this real quick. Your passion and your drive tells me more than any certification you have, right? Like
Correct.
the way you're compassionate about what you're doing and like I can tell you want to learn, you want to teach. So whenever you're learning, you're not learning to be smarter than someone else in a clinical setting.
No.
You're learning to know as much as you can to help someone else achieve greatness.
Correct. And that's where, oh, go ahead.
The only benefit of knowing big words, like you could say pedagogy, right? What does pedagogy mean? Well, it's teaching other people how to learn. Or you can just say, I like helping teach people how to learn, because everyone understands that.
Right.
And I feel like that's the problem. If I'm talking to PhDs, I'm going to use a different language, because then we can eliminate a lot of words, right? Like there's a place for it, but most of the time it's almost unnecessary.
It really is. And that's where I think when we talk, I think our initial conversation was doing more works. And so it's the same concept. Like why not get really good at 10 different drills that can have lots of different variations, but master the skill that directly transfers to the court. So it's really boring. It's actually really boring. Like the same way with training. To be really good at something, when I think about, the foundation of how pro athletes train or high level athletes train, it's actually really boring. And that's where I think a lot of parents get caught up in the fancy things, and the FOMO is like, it looks really cool. Okay, when is an athlete ever going to need to balance on their knees on an exercise ball and then you throw things at them? Never. Never. How, it looks cool, but risk versus reward. Same way with all this training. You can pay thousands of dollars for all these lessons, but the main question is it transferring? Is your kid confident? Is your kid resilient? Are they gritty? Can they fight? Are they, a balanced athlete? Or are they operating from a constant place of stress because they feel like they have to do all of these things in order to be successful? I had to undo a lot of my mindset when I stopped being an athlete. Can
I push back on that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
The ball thing? Not because you're incorrect, because that's more correct than what I see, right? Everyone wants to do the machines, the red lights, the saunas, the stuff. So two things. One thing is, if you have a type A person that has to do stuff all the time, and you can throw I don't like Normatec boots. I don't think they're effective. I can do calf raises and get the same benefit, in my opinion. But if you have a type A person and you can sit them down for 20 minutes and not do anything, maybe that person needs the Normatec boots. Right? Like, I don't want you to do anything, and this device makes you sit there. So I think it's more of a mental thing of, now you're forced to do something. You're forced to stop.
Right.
The balancing on a ball, you said, like, that's not effective. And I want to push
I'm
back.
not saying it's not effective.
Yeah. I get
Mine
that.
is, why is a 12-year-old athlete on doing this? Not from an adult perspective, from a kid perspective.
Yeah, my point there is, it's never effective until it's effective, right? Like, if they don't have transverse abdominis activation and you need to put them on a Swiss ball to get that activated, then that's one thing, right? And so that's what happens. You see Instagram and YouTube videos where a physical therapist or whoever is doing something and it looks cool, and you're like, oh yeah, we're working on this coordination stuff. It's like, but the kid has coordination. The kid can balance. If you put them on one foot and close their eyes and they can stand there for 30 seconds, that's not very exciting, but that means they have balance. So why would we put them on the ball?
Right.
So
Because
it's like,
it looks cool.
yeah. And that's the problem with our current system, is like, that ball test, being on a ball, balancing and getting a ball tossed at you from different directions, or catching tennis balls and learning the proprioception of your body, that is beneficial for certain people at very specific certain times.
Correct.
So that's 1% of the person. So do you want your kid to do what 1% of the people need for a specific reason that's not going to apply to them and waste time? Or should we get to the actual problem, which is the boring stuff?
Correct. And that's where I see a lot of, in general, like, where I see a lot of people do this wrong is they don't have the basics and they're putting these kids on these types of things, or
they
even
don't know why.
adults, right? They
It's
don't.
like using ChatGPT. Like, if I wrote a ChatGPT plan for volleyball, you would look at it and you'd be like, a robot wrote that. This would be ineffective because you've been
Right.
coaching volleyball. But then a parent goes on to ChatGPT or AI and they type something up and they're like, this looks amazing and it explains everything perfectly to me. But it's like, but you don't know enough to see
You're not
where
asking the
flaws
right
are.
questions.
Yeah.
You can
And
ask ChatGPT to do it if you have the right questions of what you need to do to spit it out. But that's the issue. They don't ask the right questions.
yeah.
And so that's where I get frustrated in general. And the exercise ball, I mean, I could pertain that to, why are we doing all these why is a 9-year-old blocking when they don't have the capacity to even have a solid down ball, or they don't have, they don't even have the coordination to get their feet to a ball.
Or even
Why
get
are
the
we doing
ball over
blocking?
the net on a,
Right.
on a serve.
Yeah. Why? Because one, they train so much that they're bored with the basics, even though they haven't mastered the basics. And that's where I think a lot of athletes really struggle. There's this game just develops as you age. And that's where a lot of athletes get upset. They're like, well, one of the athletes that I've been working with, the age that she's at, it's more about learning how to use the block versus being able to bang the ball. At 13s, The net's higher, the ball's heavier, but the block simply isn't developed enough to where you can still get away with bangers all the time. Where 14s, the athletes become a little bit more athletic. They're seeing the game a little bit better. They're closing the block. And now they're like, oh my God, I'm getting blocked all the time. Well, you would have gotten blocked all the time if the block had been developed at 13s. But at 14s, this is where the game develops more. So you as a hitter have to be able to develop the skill differently. Of now, it's not about avoiding the block because the game gets better, it gets faster, athletes get stronger. Now it's about how do I use the block? Now I'm adding more tools to my tool belt. 15s, it's a totally different animal than 14s. The game has evolved, right? So now athletes have to be required to have different tools. And where athletes really struggle is they're like, oh my God, I'm not that good anymore. I'm not that good anymore. And so they get panicked, and then it's like more. And it's like, no, listen, this game simply requires more of you. It requires more discipline. It requires more speed, right? One of the big conversations that I'm having with my athletes now is like, at 14, you got away with this really long, slow approach because the game was slower. Now it's faster, so we need to shorten our distance and create explosiveness in a shorter amount of time so that, we don't get roofed all the time. But also the game is faster. So there's just certain things where it's like, I think where athletes really struggle on the mental game is also rushing the development process. And parents just not understanding that. So they're also operating from a level of stress because their kid's stressed out, but they don't know the difference. And so my job is also a lot of educating parents on, no, this is normal.
So you as
This
the
is normal.
coach, you have parent to athlete conversations, then you have parent to coach conversations, and then you have coach to parent conversations. So it's like a three-way system. Just because you tell the coach, just because you as the coach tell the parent something, or you tell the athlete something, it's like, well, coach told me to do this. And then the parent's like, oh, well, I didn't know she would want me to do that. So it seems like there's just so much, like you're working two jobs at one time with one athlete. Times that by
Yeah.
11 athletes by however many groups. Do you, getting a little clinical here, so are you familiar with the competence levels? So you have unconscious competence, unconscious incompetence, conscious competence, and there's like four systems. So basically what that is you don't know, like if I ask you right now, what is something you don't know? Your brain's like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
You don't know it. Then the next level is you know that you started this new drill and you know that you're not good at it. And then you start working on it. Now you're like, okay, now I know I'm getting better at it. And then you get to the end level because you've been doing the same repetitive stuff that's boring over and over again. You're not thinking about how you need to run up to something to block. You're thinking about my body's doing this automatically. Now I can tell the ball where to go because I'm looking at, as I'm doing this automatic stuff and I'm coming up, I'm also watching where the ball's coming from. So whenever I block it, I know I want to send it this way or that way. Do you ever get into that much detail with the parents? Because that seems like that would just be, I mean, sometimes you have to, right? Like the parents like, why are you doing this? So then that's a cool conversation. But how much time do you have teaching the parents like you're teaching the athletes?
Yeah. So what I do, I have no problem educating. My thing is that I want my parents to approach it like they want to be educated, not that they want to control it. And
Good
so
point.
that's the big thing. So I am a huge communicator, and I feel like that's where a lot of coaches get it wrong is they think that parents questioning is parents threatening them. It puts them in a threatened defensive state, and it's like, no, they just want to understand, right? They just want to understand. And this I'll digress if I say that. So
Now I want to
where
know.
I'll say it afterwards, but where I feel like, one, I think it's important that I position myself in a way that my parents can hear me coaching their kids, that they can hear me chew their tail as much as encourage them and ask them, hey, like I want them to hear me say, what do you think happened? Oh, yeah, okay, right? Because it instantly instills trust that they're like, okay, I know my kid's getting what they need. Where the parent coach relationship struggles is the lack of witnessing coaching. Because when they constantly feel like their kid's just being yelled at and that's what they're hearing from their kid, one, I think parents are way less objective and neutral than our parents were. I don't ever remember my parents sitting in on a meeting with any of my coaches in my entire career. I actually quit basketball my sophomore year of high school because my coach said, I will never play you because you're missing one JV game for a volleyball tournament. I said, well, I'm 5'1". I don't have a future in basketball. I just do this because I'm really fast and I like to hang out with my friends and I can steal the ball and rebound the ball. I can pass it really well. I'm not a great shooter. I don't like to do it. But here's my jersey. My parents didn't say, why are you never going to play my kid? It's like, okay, what's your choice? You can quit or you can just ride the bench and practice. And I was like, I'd rather go to off-season track. I'm a good vaulter and I'm fast. Here we go. I'll go train. So it was never this power dynamic, but what I see more parents needing to control every aspect of their kid's life is why there's such a struggle. But there's also a level of coaches that are really immature and poor communicators that think that by a parent wanting to understand, they're a problem. And I don't address it that way. I'm totally like, let's rip the Band-Aid off. I'm all about conflict resolution. I'm not somebody that looks for conflict, but I'm also not somebody that avoids it.
Yeah.
And I know that takes emotional intelligence. I know that takes me being in a very secure place about what I do and the product that I deliver. And not a lot of coaches can do that because they're flying by the seat of their pants and they're coaching the way that they learned from other people. I've been very intentional about creating pillars of the kind of player that I want, pillars inside my program, and holding and recruiting athletes that fit those pillars. And that makes me very, very secure and confident in the product that I deliver. And then I'm also very, very willing to say, I don't know, but I will find out. And I know a lot of coaches and adults in general fear that if I don't know everything, there's going to be problems. Where being vulnerable and saying, I don't know, or you're right, I never considered that, let me think about it, has put me in a level of trust with my parents that I don't necessarily have a lot of issues. And
it brings more confidence in relationship because you're like, you know a lot of stuff. Clearly, they're coming to you, so you know more than they do. And then whenever someone that knows, like the whole doctor thing, everyone goes to their doctor and everyone thinks that their doctor knows everything.
I have my own opinions about that, but yes.
Yeah, well, that's like the reoccurring
Yes.
stereotype, right?
Correct.
Doctors hate me because I ask a lot of questions and challenge their understanding.
Correct.
So, but most people do think that. And so it's like, if you ask your doctor something and he doesn't know, then what else does he not know? Then you start second guessing. That's what a lot of people think because they come from that mentality. The problem is the change of like what you said is, I don't know, let me figure it out versus I don't know. Whenever it's, I don't know, I haven't ran into this situation before, let me figure it out so I can come back to you. And then you come back to them. And then it's like, whoa, she gave me so much clear evidence of this thing, which means she cares so much that I asked her this ridiculous question. And I always tell people like, no question's ridiculous, but they think it's ridiculous to ask you a silly question. And then you come back to them like, oh, now I know the answer to that. And so relationship level just went exponentially higher. Whereas the coach that's, well, because this is the right way and this is how we do it. It's like, well, that doesn't really tell me anything. So how do we get you can't change everyone. You're going to have, it's the 80-20, right? 20% of the coaches out there are going to be pretty good above average coaches on a bell chart, right? On a 50-50, 80% of those are going to be great coaches. The other 80% are going to be your average or lesser than coaches. But there has to be a way that people can just turn a little switch and say, if I start doing this, I become a better coach. What is like, what's the repeated mistake you see that coaches make that if they just changed one or two things, like that changes everything about them? Is it just learning a little bit more? Is it asking more? Is it, what do you think?
I think it's where your heart is. I had a business consultation, or I had a consultation with a business coach, and she goes, how much money do you want to make a month? $50,000, $100,000? And I looked at her and I said, I don't really care about how much money I make. How do I impact 50,000 lives a month? That's the question that you need to be able to tell me. And that's where my heart is. I have, we don't get into this business for money, right? I don't get into coaching for money, right? And when I can solve how I serve coaches on a lower ticket offer that creates a high ticket value, I would be able to offer what I offer. But I think it's where your heart lies. Like, my question to coaches a lot of times that complain all the time, why do you do this? The money that I make monthly comes out to probably, with how much time I put into film, how much time I put into extra practices, driving, not even the mental load that it takes of me documenting that, it's not a lot of money. So my question to coaches is, if you complain about your team all the time and you can never find the good, why do you do this? I do this because, in the same reason that I taught, I want to make an impact. This sport saved my life. When I ask athletes, what's your goal? I ask them, where do you want this ball to take you? How do you want this ball? How do you want this ball to open up doors for you to serve others, to impact lives, right? Somewhere along the way, a coach saw my potential and brought it out of me. Volleyball also saved my life from a lot of poor decisions that I was exposed to as a young person. It was my moral compass because I simply never wanted to lose it. But it was also my moral compass because that someday I'm going to turn around and I'm going to be coaching young athletes. And so I need to be able to be a person of integrity, let alone this ball has become my ministry. It has become the way that God is using me to serve others. And I don't think that coaches truly understand why they want to do it. I think the majority of them, it strokes their ego. I'll be 100% honest. It gives them an inflated sense of purpose that look at me. And I'm not about that. I would take a pay cut to be able to serve more. And whether it's a high level team or a beginner level team, my mission's the same. And that's where I think a lot of coaches get it wrong, is it's not about, like, because I actually was talking with a coach. She was asking me my opinion about certain things with her team because her team's struggling. And I said, well, they just don't care enough. And I said, you're not asking the right questions. Go deeper. Go deeper. Well, that's not it. Okay, that's not it. Right? Because my question is these, kids are soft. No, it's how do I reach more? If the team isn't doing what I'm trying to do, it's a reflection of my delivery. It's not them. I could say it's the way that the parents parent nowadays, they helicopter parent, they blah, 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 blah. I don't care. That's how they are. How do I still impact? And that's where a lot of coaches don't evolve. They don't ask the right questions. And that's why they have issues. And they think that the louder that they scream, the more impact and change they're going to make. Where really, on the inside, all athletes want to do is avoid mistakes and avoid being yelled at.
You mentioned serving people as your ministry and having a God connection there. The biggest problem that I see with that in America is a lot of people don't need God. Because our system, right? Like we can live, we have a place to stay, we have food, we have all these things. Like, we don't need God, so people don't see their void. Their heart's empty. So of course they're going to do this job because they have to get by. They need to make more money because they have to get by. Whenever your void gets filled with Jesus Christ, God, you no longer care about money.
Right.
Because
Well,
but we don't need God in this country. So many people are like, oh, well, I'll go to church and I won't, I'll kind of listen. I won't read my Bible. I won't do these things, but I need to make more money. I need to do this. I need to do these things. It's like, have you ever tried to pray?
yeah. No, I mean, I wholeheartedly integrate my faith into my business. It's founded on it. It's the Persevere program. It's based on James 1:2-4. And because it had a profound impact on me understanding why I had to struggle so much as a kid and understanding why, well, it finally gave me purpose. And so, I mean, whether my athletes are faith-based or spiritual-based or not, I can turn perseverance into grit and it still mean the same thing. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're right. A lot of people are lost. A lot of people, their priorities are materialistic and self-serving. And I will tell you, I have not been able to build my business. I closed down my functional training business because I was so money scarcity. And I was a Christian. I was a Christian. But I was so afraid all the time. I have to make more money. If I'm not working, I'm not making money. If I'm not working, I feel guilty. And the whole premise of me building my business, stepping out of a salary job, because I stopped doing my business to go to a salary job, and I was able to walk away faithfully knowing that if I just take messy action, God's going to provide the next step. I actually heard a sermon of like, if you don't tell your kid the whole plan. He was like, because they're going to ask you, if you're going to go to, on vacation in a week, don't tell them, because they're going to be like, when are we going? When are we going? What's next? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And it's like the same way. Like if God gave us the whole plan, we're going to be like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's being faithful in one step at a time. And it's the same, if you apply that to sports, it's being faithful 1 point at a time. I don't tell my athletes we need to win games to 5 and win games to 10 and 15, like the cliche coaches. Why? Because now we're focused on point 5 instead of point 1. We win many games to 1. And if you can focus on many games to 1, you're celebrating a win every time you get a point. And it's less, you're not focusing on point 25 or the finals or the bid match or whatever. You're focused on a game to 1. And an athlete can execute a game to 1. The same way, if we don't focus on the outcome, we focus on the process. Because we're called to try to be perfect and sinless, but reality is we will never be. You're never going to be perfect at your sport, but that doesn't mean that you stop pursuing perfection. You stop pursuing perfecting the process, right? And that's where a lot of athletes live, is they think that perfection equals success, where really it's about pursuing perfection, but having zero expectation of being perfect.
You can't get perfect if you don't start trying stuff either, right? Like if you
Right.
try to be perfect by doing all this new stuff, it's like, well, now you're doing thousands of things and you're never going to get perfect at any of those things. Why don't we try moving forward? As you were saying that, I started thinking about the idea of what takes people from average to advanced outside of that repetition stuff, right? Like, we need the repetition. We need to do those things. Your whole thing is mind, mental performance. Do you think that's the main thing? Do you think it's you get advanced from your mental state? Do you think it's just so many factors? Like, what's the... Because there's a lot of kids, right? I've had coaches that have teams that, like, all their kids are just great kids. And they're like, I was blessed this year. Like, every kid's just, like, the A-level kid, and they're perfect. And I was like, is it always like that? They're like, no, it's not always
No.
like that. And then most of the kids, it's like, you have, on a team of 11, you have, like, one good kid. Or you have, like, 2 or 3 good kids. And then the rest are just kind of, like, you're working with. So I know there's some coaching capacity, right? Like, we have to have good coaches. Like, even a poor coach can coach an athletically talented person to a degree, because the athletic talent can raise the coach up. But then you have to get to a certain level where the coach can also pull you up. So it has to work on both sides. But then if you have a great coach that can't communicate, then that's also a problem. I could almost argue that a coach that knows all the science and knows all the stuff, but they can't communicate, is an ineffective coach.
Agreed.
And a coach that's just motivating you all the time and great at communicating and great at motivating you, that's cool and all, but like you need some understanding of what's going on. So there's a balance in all situations. But what are some things that you see that move someone from average, whether it's a coach or an athlete or both, or the relationship even, going from average to advanced?
So the first word that came to mind for me is intention, right? I think
Explain
that
that.
high level athletes pay attention to details and they're very intentional about it. And I think that comes with a certain level of maturity, right? It comes with a certain level of like focus, ability to focus. The other thing is like they're just intrinsically motivated. It is, I've got And I think this is where
Can
a
you
lot of high
explain
level.
intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for people real quick?
So I think for me, intrinsically motivated with my experience is I never had anyone telling me I needed to do this. No one ever told me I needed to do extra. I just simply wanted to do it. I wanted, and I didn't have anyone sit there and tell me, Kristen, you're 5'1". It's going to be really hard for you to get a volleyball scholarship without X, Y, and Z. I was just like, okay, my goal is to be the fastest and strongest and most explosive and to be loud because I want people to look at me. I want to be seen in my position. Some coaches prefer taller defensive players, but I want to show them that my upside is like, well, she's really fast. She's a hard worker. Maybe she's not as developed, but a coach that can develop would take me because they don't have to coach the controllables. And so that's another thing that high level athletes don't have to be coached the controllables. I never have to coach your energy, your attitude, your effort, or to talk. Can I teach you what to say? Yes. Can I communicate one of my athletes, I'm like, she's like, oh, we gotta want it. And I looked at her and I was like, you need to say something different because that doesn't sound positive. Done. Only gonna tell her that, right? She's doing the controllable, but it's communicate a little bit differently.
Can you teach
Effort.
the kids to do that? Can you teach the kids those skills?
I can lead them to water, but I can't make them drink.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've noticed is there are a lot of high level athletes that simply don't talk or that cut corners that have all of this potential. And I'm like, I don't give two craps about potential. I can bring out potential if they have these characteristic traits.
What about the kid
Yeah,
that sucks though? Like the kid that truly sucks. Like they're just not athletically gifted. Like there's people like that. Like
there are.
you said you're 5'1", but you had the determination and you saw your strengths and you're like, if I apply these strengths, I can do something. Some kids like they don't have the strengths.
Well, and
Like
they end up
how can
on,
that kid get better, I guess. I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
I think that they stay committed to the process. I think that I have this conversation with athletes that are, we have our top three teams are called national teams, our bottom three teams are called elite teams. And so I have athletes that are kind of on the cusp of they just simply aren't that athletic at a young age. Will they be? Yes. So they get caught up in like, oh, I'm only on the third team. I want to be on the top team. I do all of this X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you are doing all the right things. You are an absolute coach's dream. You just have to be patient in your body catching up to your effort. Like you just can't, those are things that you can't rush. And then there are some kids that are really good young that just get passed up because they're just simply good young. And so they end up kind of falling into those lower level teams and which is great. They love the sport, but do they end up quitting because they don't get a top team? Sometimes. Do they end up sticking it out because the love for the game outweighs their level? Yes. But I think high level athletes simply just don't get caught up in the crap that they can't control. And I think that there's a lot of also delusion of high level that they don't know that some of these Olympians do. There are certain things where like, oh, I don't really value the mindset because I'm good, right? It's like, no, they true high level athletes are a complete athlete and they see the big picture. They see it. And if not, eventually they're going to be passed up because these other athletes are becoming a complete athlete, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I get that a lot. Well, I'm doing really well. I'm one of the best one of the best. But I'm like, but you still crumble in the same areas. You still hit the same roadblocks. I've seen you play for 4 years now. You're still hitting the same roadblocks. But okay, that's fine. You do you. But when I have athletes that are like, they aspire to be like somebody that they're around in this area, which is a lot. Well, why does so-and-so look so composed? And I'm like, it's not the fact that they don't have negative thoughts. It's that they have the understanding that they don't have to give the negative thought attention. What you do is you believe the negative thought. You water it and you feed it. The difference is being able to have the skill set, which is mental, to be able to say, that's not true. Every thought that enters my mind isn't true. Or my feelings aren't factual. I can actually change the way that I feel in the moment.
Yeah.
And
That's
high level
specifically,
athletes know how to do that.
yeah. That's specifically why I use the word suck because it's negative connotation. And I
That's why
feel
I don't
like
use mental toughness. I use mental skills and mental performance, because toughness instantly makes them feel like they're weak because they don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why I said that. Because, like, I don't think any athlete sucks, but they do. And hearing that sometimes, like, what about me? Oh, I do suck. Like, let me hear what they're having to have a conversation about here. And then what you just said just changed minds. It's like, this
Yeah.
guy's saying they suck. And it's like, yeah, I am saying that because I want them to have a mental trigger. I want you, I do that sometimes. I try to mentally take what the words that someone uses. I'm like, your life sucks, doesn't it? I'm like, yeah, it does. I'm like, but it doesn't really suck.
Right.
Like, now I got your attention. Now let's change it. Let's reframe it. Like, you have a place to sleep. You have a place to live. You enjoy doing the things you do. You have all these things. Like, you could live in a different country under war. Would you want to be there? Well, no. Okay, my
Yeah.
life's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, does your life suck? No, my life doesn't suck.
And it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of athletes, one of the things that I've created is a reflection method that I've just created to be able to help athletes be less judgmental and critical and more objective, which has really turned into a pretty awesome cycle that I think, or that I know, that is directly helping athletes be able to see the good, right? Confidence is all about building your proof bank. It's all about identifying that you are prepared. That's really it. And when a lot of athletes come to me, they're like, well, I just had a bad practice. And I'm like, but did you really? Was it a bad practice, or was it a few bad reps that you're hanging on to, that you're carrying? And so with my it's called the RAP method. What my reflection method does is it makes them identify what's off and what's going well. They have to. Because all athletes come to a mental performance coach because they're struggling. No athlete's gonna be like, I'm really good and my mindset's really good, but I want to get it better. Very few actually do that. They're usually in like panic mode of like, I'm still struggling, I'm still in the same boat for the last 3 years, it's time to get help. And so I have to ask, like, because they always say good and bad, and I'm like, you're not allowed to say that. You have to say what's going well and what area needs improving. Because you have the power to improve it. How? By creating intention and going and doing it. So that's what growth is. And then you think about how invaluable that skill is in building goals and in setting goals and going after it. The reason athletes avoid setting goals is because they don't know how to set them properly, and then their timeline's always too short. So then they set the bar so high with a short timeline that they're a failure. And I'm like, no, it's not a failure. You just need to adjust it. Increase the timeline and learn how to adjust it, which I struggled with early on in my entrepreneurship career. I'm a failure, so therefore I don't set goals. Where in reality, it's like, no, I just need to be okay if I don't reach it right now. But they're unable to see the growth that they've had because they're like, I didn't reach this. And I always get them with a question. I'm like, so if you hit 7 out of 10 balls in, or you score 7 out of 10 points, are you living in the 7 points, or are you living in the 3 that you didn't hit? And most of them say, I'm living in the 3. And I'm like, so you have this inability to see growth, right? 7 out of 10 is pretty good. That's 70%. It's actually a really good statistic.
That's what I love about watching the Olympics.
Yeah.
When the Olympics just took place, you see the people that have a slight mess up, it ruins the rest of their performance on ice skating. Other high level achievers, they just let it go.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's going to happen. But where you focus in the process decreases the amount of times that the mess up happens and increases your desired outcome. That's the goal. And so being able to bring awareness around this to young athletes, they're like, oh, yeah. And in turn, it also helps parents realize the same thing. And they feel like they don't feel the need to control as much because it's just part of the process. This is normal. It's crazy.
How do you feel about the people that come to you, the athletes? They come to you and they're like, my mental game is like legit, like it's good, like it's solid. I need you to help me in other places. Because I see that a lot of people that think that their level of mental game, their level of biological performance, etc., is like superior, and then it's like, well, we can still grow. So
Mhm.
has anyone came to you and they're like, yeah, I don't have to worry about mental stuff. Like, yeah, I can let stuff go. I'm always positive thinking. I'm always doing these things. Do you ever see like a reoccurring thing that those people bring, that those athletes bring, where like, yeah, you do have a strong mind game. Like you are more advanced than other people. Like you clearly have worked on this, or you're just naturally gifted in that area. What downfalls
Um,
do those people have? Because everyone has a downfall, even if they're an expert in something, right?
I think that this would probably, I would run into this more if I coached male athletes. It's funny because most female athletes are better than what they think they are, and male athletes think that they are way better than they actually are. And so I have yet to have an athlete challenge me to a point where try to find something wrong with me. That's a female athlete. I did talk with a mom of a young baseball athlete who wanted to switch schools because the coach knows nothing and they're, the parents overly involved and like, why would they hire this coach? And I was like, I looked at her and she's like, I think my husband or my son needs mental coaching. And I looked at her and I said, these two mentalities alone, your son's not going to want to work with me. She goes, why not? And I was like, well, you are trying to control his journey too much and he thinks he's way better than he is. So it's not going to work. And she was like, well, let me think about it. And she messaged me like, he won't even come on the call because he doesn't think he needs it. And I said, okay. So it's
I knew that
more,
was going to happen.
yep, I knew it. Well, I knew that she wouldn't have been a great parent because she wants to control every aspect. So if this is where, like, if the coach doesn't do the right lineup, she's saying why? Because my son's not in it. And I feel like you need to do X, Y, and Z. Or the son is like, being held accountable and being held to a higher standard and he doesn't like it. So therefore he wants to quit. And to me, I most athletes with that mentality don't work with me because I challenge the ego, right? That's really it. And not saying that I don't work with male athletes. God hasn't let it there.
Yeah.
And, I've trained male athletes and I've worked with male athletes on a physical aspect, but from a mental aspect, that's just not where this has taken me. Not that I wouldn't, but I don't know because male athletes are a little bit more egotistical and inflated, and it's a tough barrier to break through. And
That's
part of
super
me just
interesting.
it is. I mean,
Well, interesting in I think a different way. Interesting
yeah,
because high school level, college level, true. Like guys think they can just do all the stuff. Like I'm at a college, I'm at a high school and varsity, like I'm the shit. Where girls, yeah, all the time it's like, I can't squat 135 pounds. It's like, yes, you can. Like you
hmm
just did 20 reps of 95 pounds. Like I know you can squat
yeah,
135. Like you can do it. No, I can't. And then they do it 5 times and they're like, I can't believe I did it. Like
yep,
I knew you could do it. So I get that aspect, but some of my adult athletes and clients, interestingly enough, CEOs, two different cases, both Type A people, both females in their mid to late 30s. One was so mentally strong, right, that she wanted to work with me. So we worked together for 3 months, and it's like, well, I know more than you. So then why'd you hire me in the first place? And it's like, oh, because I just felt like I needed someone to guide me, but like you don't know enough. Like, what do I not know? Well, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. Well, that's fine. But
that's different than not knowing
yeah,
enough.
like, is there like what's the issue? And it's like it's just a reoccurring thing of circular arguments. It's like,
hmm
well, like she couldn't identify what the problem was. Every other conversation was great, right? So I was like, that was kind of a weird situation where it's like, well, you don't know enough, and I don't know what it was. Like, I can guarantee that person was making at least 500, $600,000 a year, working
hmm
for a very large company in the United States, over 500 plus people. And then another CEO I know, completely opposite, both females. The other one's like dealing with all major issues, and it's like we're gonna do 15-minute workouts 2 days a week, and she's like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but I trust whatever you say.
Right.
And so that's why I think it's interesting because I've seen both sides, where
Yep.
like especially like high school girls, it's like
Hmm.
I can't do this weight, I can't do enough, or I don't know where I feel it. And then boys are like, oh yeah, put more weight on the bar, do more and more and more. But then whenever it gets to like the adult level, I feel like those personalities kind of shift a little bit. And
Hmm.
that was a n equals one person that was
Yeah.
like that was so mentally like I'm just mentally superior to you that I don't need
Right.
these tactics and things.
Correct.
So that's fine. Like
Yeah.
here's all your information. I hope someone can help you out. Like
Right.
if I meet anyone that can, like I'll send them your way. But like I don't hold any. Like I don't care. Like I'm trying to better you.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. That oh, it's like anything. Some men have feminine characteristics, a little
Hmm.
more emotional. They don't have that stoicism, and then some women
Hmm.
have more of that like hard charging, male stereotypical behaviors and
Right.
the range
And
of.
I'm not saying that like it's all male versus all female, because I mean there are females that are very much in their ego, or most of the time what I see with high school and middle school athletes is that it's like shame around mental coaching. And it's like, dude, I'm not therapy. I don't claim to be a therapist. I don't do therapy. If I like I again, I'm not clinical. I'm not a licensed psychiatrist or whatever. I'm not. My job is to make you functional in your sport. That's it. Therapy is to make you functional in life. My job is to teach you the skills to be functional and maximize all the work that you put in, just the same way that you do lessons. It's a skill set. And so, where I think, I'm glad the last two Olympics, they've really highlighted the mental game. I think it's brought a lot of awareness around people being open to it, or, them being exposed to it, and then hearing, people find my page and they're like, oh, you know, we need to consider this. Or I didn't know that it was more about skill set. I just thought it was therapy. So my kid's been really against it because they don't need a therapist. I'm like, cool, your kid doesn't, and I'm not a therapist. So great, win win. Let's move forward. So, but I think it's funny in your example of the two different women is I would be interested to see what areas of her leadership in her mindset hold her back by saying, I know it all. What is her culture like? What is, because to me it's I know it all, so therefore am I really serving? Do I have a heart to serve? This is exactly how I planned my wedding. I went to my florist, I gave her a picture, and I said, can you make this happen? Yes or no? Cool, I trust you.
Yeah.
My cake, right? I'm not an expert in cake decorating. I'm not an expert as a florist. I'm not an expert in my CPA. I'm not going to micromanage how you do everything. Here's my need. Can you fill it? Yes or no? Awesome. Cool. Done. I'll pay you. Right? Or I can sit and suffer and try to do it myself and fail and fail and fail, or I can expedite the process by asking someone or paying someone to do it for me. And that's where I think a lot of parents probably avoid the mental skills because they're like, I can just do it myself. I can do it myself. I can help my kid. And I'm like, that's actually what's hurting your kid's mindset, because they want a parent while you're being the coach. And so they actually don't open up to you because they're afraid of ridicule, they're afraid of judgment, they're afraid of, you know, well, in my day, I did this and I was this kind of athlete and I didn't have to, I didn't struggle with these areas. And then the kid just feels more shame, right? Where your other CEO, cool, you're the expert, help me, right? I've swallowed my ego to the point where I am so dysfunctional that I need someone to help me. Cool, right? That they're willing to say, "Oh, I don't know, let me find out for you." Which would be an interesting environment of the two different kinds of cultures that these businesses have under this different level of leadership, just by the way that they say,
Yeah.
right? So nobody that's in that first CEO's mindset is going to come to me as an athlete and ask for help. They won't, because they don't think that they need it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is a mental struggle in itself.
The first one, it's interesting because it's like to be that successful. Sorry, she wasn't a CEO. She was just a lead, whatever,
Yeah.
over some AI stuff. But running 500 people underneath you, it's weird because you have to have some type of capacity to be able to do that, right? Like you can't run
Hmm.
500 people because you can't touch base with 500 people to make sure they're doing the right thing. Like you can't micromanage. So it's kind of an interesting, because that person's been doing it for 10 years. So clearly there's something there, but it's just so, that's why it strikes me as odd. How can you run a team and clearly be good at it if you're staying with a company that long and probably running it well? Maybe not. Maybe you do have some cultural things, or maybe you, because there's so many people, you just have to let things go. But then, like you said, that would be very interesting to like get into the mindset of like, hey, what's actually going on?
Right. Yeah, that I would be interested to know that for sure. So,
I
but
always try to ask my
find that.
brother this stuff. My brother's a PhD psychologist. I'm always like kind of bounce ideas off of him. He does a lot of clinical work with therapy and stuff. So I'm like, hey, what do you think about like this situation? He's like, every time it's like, I don't know enough about that person. Like I need case
Oh,
studies and I need to talk to him. Like
oh no.
I get it. I get what like he's a PhD. He's a psychologist. You know, like I get that he needs the information and he's not going to come out with biased information. And he's also publishing studies and creating textbooks and he's on the internal review board. So he's like he's very high up and everything he says matters to a high degree that he can't be uncertain of something. So I
Yeah, of
get it, but
course.
still it's like just give me some nuggets. Give me
Yeah,
some things, some thoughts because I it
right.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. I totally get it. So yeah, I do appreciate you bringing me on here though. This was fun. It's
Yeah.
great getting
Well,
to just chit chat back and forth and talk shop.
yeah, definitely. Before you go, a few things. Where can people find you? So we'll start there.
Okay, so you can find me at the Mental Volleyball Coach on Instagram and TikTok. My Facebook handle is Kristen Woodman, and yeah, that's how you find me. You can find me at persevereathleticscoaching.com, thementalvolleyballcoach.com, to check out my website, but most of my main content is going to be on Instagram and TikTok.
Cool. Next, do you have any guests that you would recommend to come onto here that you think would be a good fit?
Ooh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I was not prepared for that one. I was not prepared.
You can come back to me.
I do have someone. I worked with him in corporate fitness when I worked when I was opening gyms. He has really turned his name's Barry. He has turned his niche into training like special needs teenagers. I've really seen his page transform, and I'm obsessed with watching his videos of some of these kids like being like just the way that he trains and the way that he uplifts them. Like, I'm like, dude, this is perfect for you. Like, God really sent you in the right direction. And, you know, because he was one of the trainers in the first gym that I opened back in Tulsa. I worked for Vasa Fitness. And so, yeah, he would be really cool. I think you guys would geek out about training for sure. He's so much fun. He is a wonderful guy. And I have just truly enjoyed seeing him train these parents and these kids together. You know, the parent gets their workout in and gets their time while, you know, he's also training the athlete or teenager. And so it's just really cool to see how these kids light up. And, you know, because a lot of them, you know, struggle with, you know, being overweight and, you know, overeating and things like that. So it's pretty cool to see his page kind of turn into that. So I'll definitely have to send you his contact information, but it's Barry Wise Fitness, and he's located out of Tulsa. But he would be a pretty cool guy to bring on. I think you guys would really like geek out with terms that I would have to probably Google. So
I mean, that's always the goal, right? To get to a point where people understand what we're talking about.
absolutely, yeah.
Like,
But he'd be a fun one.
that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day.